Today is July the 21st, 2015. My name is Tanya Finchum. Along with Alex Bishop, we're with Oklahoma State University, and today we're in Watonga to speak with H.D. Tolbert, and this is regarding our Oklahoma 100-Year Life project. So thank you for having us. Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born.
You don't want to know why?
That too, I guess.
Well, when and where. When was January 22nd
Use one little shred at a time.
of the year of 1915, out here in the west edge of Blaine County on a farm. A Negro woman was the midwife, and she caught me as I left that beautiful, wonderful home, and cleaned me up and became my, I guess you'd say, my godmother. And the black people I've always, a lot of them I've felt sorry for. And I wish that the world, not Tolbert, but the world could be more meaningful and for them than it has been in the United States. But then as they came here as slaves, owned, like somebody owned property, that they could kill it if they wanted to. I have to have a lot of sympathy for them, and
a casserole that I made. I don't think I made it here before. Where you take
it, and my sympathy isn't always satisfied, never to my satisfaction, of course.
Frozen shredded potatoes.
But they, in their way, they have been good for America.
And milk, mix them together. A little bit of
Well, did you have brothers and sisters?
mustard? Do you have any powder?
I had a sister that died before I was born. She had Watonga. Well, my folks lived right here at Watonga, and we didn't have a hospital. And my dad took her to Clinton, and there she developed, well, she had appendicitis, and it broke, and then she died from, I forgot the name of it.
Peritonitis.
Yeah, peritonitis.
They're very tasty, and we can put sausage in it.
All right, then
Put some meat in it.
my folks had a son that was alive, and he became the only child then. All right, then.
Yep.
And I came along to replace my sister. And that's why I've been such a sissy all my life, that I came into the world for the purpose of replacing a sister. And then my brother got killed by a horse through him and killed him, and then that left me as an only child when I was 7 years old. So I had to grow up as an only child. And I remember some of my friends going in school. Oh, you've got this wonderful year, so on. You got another. You don't have any brothers or sisters to fight with me, blah, blah, blah. I said, you don't know what it is to be lonely.
Do you like pumpkin pies?
And
Or cherry pie?
my brothers and sisters, they have a good time fighting.
Any other kind of
Sometimes.
You got a brother, haven't you?
No.
You don't?
No.
Well, then you don't understand me, do you?
I have two sisters.
Buy an aluminum one.
They fought. I stayed out of it.
Yeah, that's. Well, you had your share of fighting.
Well, what did your parents do for a living?
Well, they were farmers at the time my brother was killed.
I've done it before.
We moved to town, and my dad went into the produce business, buying cream, eggs, and farmers' produce. And that was the name of the business, the farmers' produce. And that was his. That's.
Had they moved to Oklahoma or were they born here?
Let's see. Mother was a Missourian. I think they called them Missouri Pukes. Isn't that what they called them? Missouri Pukes? No. But anyway, my dad came from Indiana.
I'll see if they have any cherries in there. 'cause
Well,
I'm confused.
where did you go to school, like your elementary school days?
I hate it. I like to get, I used to.
Watonga here. Well, I started out in the country, and they couldn't stand me, and they got rid of me by sending me to town with my folks.
Why couldn't they stand you?
What?
Why couldn't they stand you?
If you were around here very long, you'd understand. You can stick around, you'll find out.
Are you pulling my leg?
Am I what?
Pulling my leg.
No. You seem to be doing all right.
I got this at a store,
So what year did you graduate from Watonga?
and it was supposed to be,
Oh boy,
it was supposed to cost
it was.
and
I was the only one that was kicked out of school over here at Christmas time. I was a sole graduate all by myself.
made me like it a whole lot.
I got along with people all right, but sometimes I was in a hurry.
I like how it feels.
And
And you can
my son there will tell you that I'm pretty bad about getting in a hurry.
Yep. Yeah, it does.
So 1932-ish?
Let me see.
See there on the right side? Yeah.
Let me see that 33 or 30. Let me see. Then I went down to OU for a while, and I had a bunch of good guys down there. I enjoyed some of my professors, especially my English professor. I mean, really and truly, he was an excellent. He was at that time he was writing a story about
Really?
one of our Western heroes, and he and I got along great. I mean, I liked the guy,
We've got till October.
and
Oh, we have to.
I've written a few books, but none of them are any good. And
We'll have probably.
but I give him the credit for that, telling me that, because that lets me
For pie, so that would be 2 pies. probably.
open up
Too small.
my heart to the
And I
world,
can take one over to Viva's and she'd be
the
happy.
way I feel about a lot of things when I do it. In my books, Hal, he's read them all, and
All right.
well, he knows not to read them, see, and I have a daughter. Well, see, I have 2 daughters, but in addition to my son Hal there, and Hal, what did I do with that your picture that you had of you there? What did I do with it?
You showed it to him.
Huh?
You showed it
But
to
I
him.
can't crochet.
Well, I just want to be
Sit
sure
there
that you.
crochet and talk to me, and I'll cook. And I'll
He's my
cook.
pride and joy.
I can't crochet.
And I have a daughter that lives right over here on the southwest corner of this block.
Well,
And she's also one of my pride and joys. And she's an attorney here. Then I have another daughter that she's my ornery kid. I mean, isn't that right?
Cooking I can do with my eyes crossed. With my eyes shut. I can
But
almost do it in bed. So
she has her life,
so cooking is easy.
and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. She's bought a house out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she's remodeling it
Well,
to suit
do you use any of that
them,
from
not her,
stuff
because
on
they control
that cream
how
from
how a house is arranged out there because of the Mexican and the
You don't have any?
well how they want them to
I've got
look.
some of that. I brought it from
Well,
my
she's
I use it sometimes on my knee.
and she has made some
I'll use that on
investments
back after the accident and
that has
I'll bring it over,
made her
you know, later on when I come over and
I guess I
start
would
rubbing it
say
into your hands and just
filthy
letting it rest
rich.
a little while. You know, and then,
But she is, but I'll tell you what, she's a lot of fun, isn't that right? Oh, she's quite a gal.
So you graduated from the University of Oklahoma?
No.
No? Well, take me through your education.
You know, if you're maniacally crocheting 8 hours a day, a 12-year-old.
Well, my first year of school was out in the country. And we folks moved, well, my brother got killed, and we came to town, and then they transferred me in here, and I went to school here at Watonga. Graduated, and they kicked me out at Christmas about 1930.
Every single toilet that I've
30.
seen done is wonderful.
4:35. Anyway, then they sent me, and I went down to OU for a while. And well, anyway, then I wound up by going to law school over in Tennessee, and I was elected county attorney here, and I had a guy that was one of the fellow lawyers that I thought was a crook. Well, he got me to join the FBI, and he was appointed county attorney, and I wasn't a bit happy over that because he was a thorough crook, and
What makes them handmade?
well, anyway.
So you worked for the FBI. Was that before World War II or during World War II?
That was well, that was we had started our war, but it was, I guess it was during war. But I didn't stay with the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover and I didn't always see eye to eye, and I have been such an ignorant man in my life that I never had sense enough to follow the men who actually were in charge. I always break out on my own. To hell with them.
Maverick.
And that's the way I felt about it. Now he was. J. Edgar Hoover was in the village. He was an awful good man, but he had some employees that I wasn't happy with, and of course I had to work for them. So that's when I told them to go to hell.
And you were in the Army?
Oh yeah.
Army.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell them to go to.
In effect, I did. I never went to boot camp. I never had to. What they did, they found out that I'd been in the FBI, and they put me to work. I worked for the provost marshal there in Fort Sill. I had my own office, and had my own secretary.
That's beautiful.
I'll never forget one girl that was, you know, the Army had certain ways that had to be done.
Right.
Whenever you took a statement from somebody that maybe would
In this one here and there.
help put them in the penitentiary, why, it ended up by further deponent saith not. That's the end of the statement. Well,
If you had an
I really thought a lot of that one secretary. She was married and everything, and her husband was in the Army, and they worked there at the Provost Marshal. And so we had a situation that came up with over at Durant from Lawton, you know where Durant is. Concerning, well,
Well, I would take one of every color too, or two of every color, or 3, 4, or 5, because I think it's just great.
the guy that was, well, anyway, we ran into
I took white,
homosexuality,
and I took cream,
and I'll never forget this. This guy that was we were questioning.
Okay.
He was pretty good fellow. Actually, he wasn't a bad man at all.
And I think
He looked over at her and he said, "I think maybe you and I ought to discuss that by ourselves. I don't think I want to, and you know, with her." I'll never forget how she ended up her part of the statement. Further, deponent would let me heareth not. Well,
I don't think there's any here that aren't wonderful.
well,
Yeah.
there are a lot more. We won't go on into all that. But I had to go. Then I went over to Durant to try to help the school district out there, because he was there. Well, he was a superintendent. This homosexual. And I didn't like the idea of a homosexual being in charge of our school system, and whether it be Durant or anywhere. So, and see, I was supposed to stay out of that kind of work. I was an Army man, and I should not. But I thought, well, that's too important for me. To hell with what I'm going to do as I please here. Well, the way it worked, that further deponent let me heareth not. That did it. And
I'm thrilled if I could do one that looked like this.
I went over to talk to the sheriff over in,
Not happening.
and he was the dumbest damn man. I mean, he didn't know how. Probably a pretty good sheriff. He might have been able to.
All right, which ones do I want?
I don't know, but he didn't know how to respect people always. So he and I didn't get along too good, because he blurted out what was wrong, and that's when he and I parted company. To her and to her husband. I mean, it was anyway. That's typical of my life.
Yeah.
How did you choose law as your profession?
How did I choose law?
Or did it choose you, I guess?
Boy, you really hit me with a dandy there.
No, that's not that. That's navy blue or something.
You know, I don't know.
That's
I
this
can't tell you why I chose law.
I
You've asked me something that boy, you're digging pretty deep. Well,
one.
the law
Doesn't
and
pretty as it should. You know what I mean? If you had a dark purple and a light
Whenever you read the Bible it has an awful lot of law. It tells about law and how you should respect, you know.
What would it look like with some of this?
I
I'm not sure I'd like that.
I wish I could tell you how but I remember that when I was going through high school and on the debating team, they said, well, you ought to study law and be a lawyer. I remember my answer was, I don't want to have to sit around and listen to people's troubles. Well, I guess I didn't realize, well, I didn't at that time,
You know, do some of
realize that
without the white in it.
what a
You know, like.
wonderful position that put you in
You know what I mean?
to help people with their problems and their troubles, was to be a lawyer and to be able to talk to them in a way that you could back it up, and that the society as a whole would back up you, me. That's a hell of an idea to think that the world's going to back you up now, doesn't it? So you can't be you.
Now, do you think that would be,
I
Good together? Well, that could be nice together. That could be very nice.
I've sent a lot of people to the penitentiary, really.
I have one at home that I think these could be nice together.
I remember one that I've often wondered whether I did the right thing or not. Was it
Somebody
about
crocheted. I found it in
this
some thrift
Negro man had
store.
this
It's got,
girl that he was having an affair with. She was just a kid, you know.
So it's got like a yellow
And the
pansy
old black women came to me and wanted me to do something about it.
and a bluish pansy.
Okay, so I did, sent him to the penitentiary.
And it's got a different color
He only stayed about a year or so.
I'd show you a picture of
He
that.
came back and what did he do? He married the girl and
did you get that here?
Uh-uh.
they got along great. And they had a good family.
Pansies around the edges,
Did I do what was right
and it had this group in the center.
in sending him to the penitentiary?
I got this long time ago. When in Rock
Would he have
Island.
married her had I not sent him to the penitentiary? Did he have to sit around there by himself and consider whether or not
But was it
he really
different
loved her and wanted her as a wife? I don't know.
Lavender and
I've always solved my own
the petals,
color? Yeah.
you know, they were all.
thoughts there by saying, well, I gave him time to study it and he did the right thing.
And I don't
You were following the law.
see like that.
Yeah. And I made a lot of the old black women proud. They, boy,
Could be nice together.
that Mr. Tolbert is not such a bad fella.
Was that here in Watonga?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how did you choose Tennessee for your law degree?
That's a masculine looking one, so a guy could be happy.
Well, I just, the school there, money-wise, I guess, and
Like a guy would.
everything, that would be just the whole. And my folks, we were poor people. We didn't
A lot
have,
of room for different colors.
a lot. Now, the world has been good to me financially.
That's nice.
I've got nearly 1,000 acres of wheat land, and the world has been good to me when it came to money and property. But not so to my parents, you know. Well, they had a different life.
If you feel like
So,
going,
I don't know.
we'll just head out here. and go.
We've always you know already too damn much.
You just run and do this part of it. I can do
Well, how did you meet
it.
your
You don't-
first
you
wife?
feel like you'd rather take a nap. I'll let you do whatever you want to do. You want to go.
She
live-
was my secretary when I was county attorney here in Blaine
You
County.
better take a nap instead, then take it, I'll be right back.
Probably would take a nap.
I just don't want you to get too tired today, so that we can do.
Well, what about your second one?
Oh, that, well, that, I suppose that my mother's death had something to do with that. I don't know.
You know, don't
Well,
have
are
to
you the first
wear
to
yourself
live
out
to
the gag so
100?
that tomorrow
Did your
you can
parents
try to go up there if you want to.
make it to 100?
No.
But if you feel like.
Well, I know
it,
your
don't want
siblings
you to
didn't,
have
but
a-
did your,
No, as far as I know, I was the only one that made that mistake.
how did you celebrate?
My 100th?
Mm-hmm.
We did though. We did.
Well, I don't know exactly. All in all, I spent around $10,000 celebrating it.
That was our
But,
share.
you
You must have had a big party.
Yeah, we did. Didn't we have a big party?
We did.
You can think about whether you're gonna let me have it.
Boy, yeah, we sure did. My son there, we've had a lot of fun together.
I'm gonna share a couple with Becky.
Now, as a lawyer or an attorney, did you ever kind of contribute or serve in politics? Or
Oh, I served 2 terms in the House of Representatives as a Republican. There were only about 22 of us and about 110 men there, and there was about 22 of us were Republican at that time. But old Bill Murray, one of the ex-governors, me being low dog on that totem pole there, I sat in the back row of seats right next to the one of the doors. Well, old Bill Murray, an ex-governor, he'd come through that door and he'd sit down there with me. So he and I got to be pretty good friends. And Bill was a character. His son was our governor at that time. Well,
No, go ahead.
yeah, go
You
ahead.
can tell us another story about him if you want.
Gave them, that they bought new ones and so they gave them the old ones, which are actually.
now what was that again?
Said you can tell us more about Alfalfa Bill if you want.
Chair cushions of it because they were,
Well, he was.
now they're sort of a red rust, not quite.
He was a
rust,
lot better man than most people gave him credit for being, I'll put it that way.
in a kind of a suede cloth.
Well, there's a building on campus named after him, Murray Hall.
Mhm.
Some people think that wasn't a good idea.
They have one bookcase in the living room.
Well,
They took a dresser that I had for their bedroom, and they took the bed that I had. and
no, he was a good man. That's no mistake.
Working on it.
That's no mistake.
And they're working full time, so they got back from.
But when you get into politics, people become
right into work. So her
headstrong.
bedroom at our
and
house,
they
the closet is still full.
they are always
The
right.
dresser is
You never saw a politician in your life that wasn't right.
Well, not totally full, but got a lot of stuff in it.
So
Still
you
has
served
that.
2 terms in the House.
Still has jewelry, it's.
Did you not want to go further or had had enough or
I had enough.
had enough?
Pictures off the wall.
And you said there were,
Took her
it was
desk,
more Democrats than Republicans at
sat
that
at a
time.
simple table desk with a raised-
A Republican was
Put a few things in. She took that.
thought of sort of more or less like a cur dog.
I mean, she's really just getting it.
The cur dog gets along pretty well as long as he doesn't go to try to get too friendly with other dogs.
Yeah.
That was in the 1950s.
Sometimes they.
Back in the 40s.
40.
They usually have Monday off. But they
So
don't
when
always
did you
have-
retire?
I never have.
Bad
Well,
question.
they're working on that schedule.
I,
Spread out so they can get more days off together. But, you know, they need him
Well,
on
I-
Saturdays a lot of the time, and so.
to retire from what?
Saturday and the
From
food,
life?
so she's
Practicing law.
sort of trying to figure it out. But, so she's getting stuff done. They have
Well-
to buy a washer in the dryer, so they did that. And
To me, that would be a retirement
Got a
from
pantry there.
from life.
Had washer and dryer hookups, so they could have their own washer and dryer.
The law, and I love the law.
And the laundromat, you know, it's like,
I love the law.
so that's good, but, you know, we were just
I
there.
you've asked me some questions that are pretty
She still
tough.
has boxes and boxes piled up of wedding gifts and things like that they are just opening.
Now you've written a couple of books. Can you explain what you wrote, or what?
What is it?
But it's pretty small. But,
Where one of them, Hal?
I'll be right back.
there are things that I know are her treasure.
That guy there is. Now I'll tell you what.
No, I'm gonna ask,
He's
I keep asking about.
he's a priest in the church there. Oh yeah, thanks, Hal.
I haven't figured it out.
There's one of the books I wrote about the town herd.
A place to put all that.
Now you don't know what a town herd is.
What do you have your lamp sitting on?
What is it?
That is the people back at that known as the. I have here two types of herds:
That one that you made me a lot
a herd of people and a herd of cattle.
Shells or anything, it was just.
The town herd in reality was
I use it on the corner of.
the milk cows,
My bed, where I put my water glass.
and back before we had
It sits there. and
mechanical refrigeration. The best place to keep the milk was in the cow until you needed it.
My bed with a lamp on it, it's got one under it.
And that's why we had a town herd.
Places,
And the people here in town, different ones would have a milk cow.
things like that.
And maybe they'd have
That, only it's
a
not
little left,
glass.
they'd give it away or something, maybe a quart now and then.
And I have a couple on there. with
So that's-
things on it. Yeah, fun places.
Did your folks have a cow in town?
And it's nice to have them switch
No.
out one.
No.
We couldn't afford one.
So you didn't have to milk one?
You know,
You didn't have to milk?
Oh, well, had a man that ran had a
yeah, I do too, that's.
a herd of milk cows here, and I worked for him. He also had the ice plant, and I worked for him,
Anything you
and
wanna get rid of, I'll take.
and helped milk those cows. Of course, we used milkers,
I really wanna get rid of them. I don't
and
know,
anyway,
it's kind of a
and the ice plant, and
different kind of.
he was an old bachelor. He never had children of his own,
I really do, I think it's great.
but every
Yes, I know.
poor woman, every poor person come up with a baby, they had
You
milk.
guys have breakfast?
Like what?
Did you eat breakfast?
Tom Essington was one of the best men I've ever known in my
I
life.
didn't enjoy what I had, but I wanted orange juice.
He knew how
You didn't have.
to help people without groveling in front of them and telling them, "Oh, I'm going to be so good to you."
I'm gonna get over that bread out and fall out.
Well, where was, go ahead.
He's getting ready to read something that's none of his business. Go ahead and read it if you want to.
Well, I want to know what Watonga is kind of a Native American name. Were there Native Americans here when you were growing up?
We always had Indians, gosh, a whole bunch of them. I mean, they were. I always had good friends. I had one of my best friends in high school was an Indian boy, and he was an artist. I mean, a natural born artist.
You said you wanted to give me.
I understand that he went to New York whenever he got out of school
I'll
and
use my credit.
up there, and anyway, he wound up and he came back home and he died of drunk.
And then I'll just pay it off later. That's fine.
That's one of the bad things about that seem to be our Indians.
Every dollar I spend on my credit card,
They
then I can use those miles to.
Firewater and Indians didn't get along.
Called my credit card for, I never heard from them, and I have.
Anyway.
I have called them.
So where was your office here in town?
It was
What's going on?
the bank building down on Main Street there. It was up over there.
I use a
That's where, that was where all the lawyers that was there, they could get up there and fight and no one cared. Well, I remember one time I was sitting, my office was right at the top of the stairway, just toward the top, and they're like, here was my office. We had one man that was a big man. And his office was on the west side of they went down to the front. And he was in my office one day, and we just came out of Halden having a trial.
I'll take a look at that and I'll see if we can
And
figure it out.
one of the men, the man in my office was the
They all have it online.
was the brother of the man that had died.
And stuff like that with points.
Well, this lawyer that there
I can help you find
didn't
out.
have sense enough to keep his mouth shut,
Well, how
and
long
he
do I have
started
with
belittling this brother of the man that was sitting there.
Yeah, but for me.
Oh God, I'll never forget that. Oh boy,
Binoculars.
I was sitting back behind my desk.
And I use
This,
for airline miles. So
This fellow that was the brother of the deceased man, he come and he said, "Are you calling my brother a liar?"
Let's take a look
Just
at
the way he
it.
said it.
Bill, what I
He
have,
looked over at that lawyer.
and we'll take
Oh,
a
no,
look
no,
at it,
no.
figure it out again, and-
I could just see my office just being an absolute nothing but a junk pile. Because this brother was, and they were from Old Keene, and he was German extraction.
You take a look
So
at
you
it.
call
I'll
my
look at
brother a
some
liar?
stuff, and then,
Oh, brother.
you know,
Did I ever tell you about that?
Oh, yeah. Is that Grallman?
if you wanna do
One of the
that,
Grallmans?
if you feel
Hmm?
like
One of the Grallmans?
No, they were farmers.
Huh.
Well, did you ever lose a case?
Not really. Boy,
Maybe we should ask, did you ever win a case?
no. No,
We can do all
you
that.
never.
We can do all that. All right.
Win or lose.
Well, then I'll get a bunch of groceries.
Do you have any cases that you were proud of?
Plan on going ahead and doing that up there.
Oh well, yeah, you a lot of them really and truly. Working for poor people, I always enjoyed that because
Okay, I saw what you had in there.
I always kind of I had a
Don't worry. And if I don't. if I
place in
see
my heart
something,
for
I'll go
the
back.
poor people
It's not a big
because
deal. It's just, you know,
the world has always been hard on
I think I can drive
the poor people. I think much more so than they.
This one, I think it's a.
Like I told you about
it's not as
that
cheap as the other guys.
old
Yeah.
Negro man said, "Well, sir,
Day if you're gonna drive.
the big dog do the barking, but the little dog run out and do the biting."
Okay,
And that's the way this.
you know what? They'll be fine.
A lot of the big dogs, they do the barking.
All right.
And that man you met in the Army, is that right?
Worrying. I decided on the.
Oh, in the Army, I met a lot of guys.
Because it's never helped.
But this man who told you that the big dogs do the barking?
Oh, yeah, he was. That poor man should have never been in the Army. His mentality was such that he. But, you know, we use a draft system here that you have to understand the draft system to supply the,
I'm gonna get your bread first. Just a second.
you know, the warrior. I really felt sorry for an awful lot of the Negroes that I had to deal with in the Army because it seemed like they were the ones who really produced a lot of our problems. You know, down at Fort Sill, we had a lot of little stores all over the post. Well, every one of them had a little safe, a cheapie that, you know, about all you had to have to get into it was a pair of pliers and a screwdriver. And the Negro, it just seemed like that hardly would a weekend go by, but what we didn't have some Negro that went in and got into the safe, and of course it seemed like I'd had I don't know how I had, but it seemed like I always could find them quick and do something about it. Not that Lord, that's and you know, and all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players.
Well, did you ever think you would make it to 100?
Well, when I was in the Army, well, I used to have something would hit me in the stomach, and I'd just double up like I was having a heart attack. Well, one day I had gone down at Fort Sill there. I'd gone down into Lawton I had about, I think it was 3 or 4 people with me in the car and to do what we had to do. Coming home, I had another man driving, and I was just private. They put me to work because I'd been a special agent with the FBI before I went into the Army, and I had the training and everything that they could use without me going even through. Yes, sir. I never did go through boot camp. Well, coming back, they doubled up and scared them, and they took me to the hospital. And fortunately, a doctor that was in the service from Chicago, and he took me over, and he wanted to put me in the hospital. I said, "No, I don't want to go to the hospital." I said, "You guys get a hold of me, and you set me there for 30 days, and you're not going to put me in the hospital." He said, "Well, let's take a look at you." So he gave me something to drink, and I ended up drinking it, and there was fiddling down through me. He called his nurse. "Nurse, look at this." Here's what he said. "There is the most perfect intestinal system I've ever seen in my life." He turned to me and he said, "You're going to live to be a ripe old age." The only thing I asked him was, "Well, what's the difference between ripe and rotten?" So that was my experience with the doctor, because I said he didn't put me. He knew that, and I told him that there was nothing new to me. I'd had it for a long time. Those just like a heart attack. Well, I haven't had those for years. But anyway,
What's your secret to longevity?
I would say there is no secret to that. The good Lord knows who to keep around, who to leave, and who to get rid of. I don't know whether you believe in the Lord or not, but that's up to you. But
You can't eat one handful in a sitting?
you know, the good Lord cries a lot. Yeah, I'm sure that He shed a lot of tears over humanity. I mean, we've let that now. We're getting into something that's none of your business, and I'm sorry, but that's.
Religion has been an important part of your life.
I would say yes. Very
You progress or you don't add anything.
much more deep-seated than even my son knows.
It's all finished in there.
And if anybody would know it, it'd be him.
Did you attend church as a youngster with your parents?
Well, yeah,
So it goes back that far?
Count your doing.
I remember my son there was about, well, I don't know, it was the first time we'd gone to church after he was born. And the minister was the president of the Oklahoma City University, who is also a Methodist. And I took him up for, first and presented him to this old preacher, and that preacher was he was just happy as a lark. He said, here I am, president of Oklahoma City University, and I never get an opportunity like this. And he blessed my son, and I didn't know that I was giving him to the Lord for good, because see, he now is a minister and that's his but he didn't stay a Methodist. He went the Orthodox, and see, it separated from the Roman Catholic Church in about the 800s or 900s. There's a group of those that didn't like the Pope telling them what to do and what not to do, so they started there. I think that's really of course they got a more better story than that. That's my interpretation. Oh, you guys! I mean, don't you think we've talked long enough?
Oh, I got just a couple more questions for you. One that you didn't talk about too much is what did you used to do for fun as a kid?
What?
What did you used to do as fun for entertainment as a kid? Were you ever in the Boy Scouts? Were you ever
yes.
go to dances? Or
I was a Boy Scout, and later then I do you know which book you might
Fire Mountain?
now Leona has a full set of them back here of my books that I've written, and
You want Fire Mountain?
What?
You want Fire Mountain or?
no, Fire Mountain's a different type of story. That's
Well, you
anyway.
mentioned your scouting.
but you were a Boy Scout and
I was scoutmaster, later scoutmaster. I did a lot of work with the scouts. Go in there and get that book. I mean, well, in my estimation, Boy Scouting is one of the best institutions there is for boys. One of the yeah.
Legend of Fire Mountain, is that a real place?
1927. Took
The picture, yes, the picture is real.
But this is more fiction.
That
story.
picture is right out northwest or north of town here.
Mhm.
I took that picture on the front of that book when I was when I was this Boy Scout I was about 13 or 14 with an old box camera.
Hmm.
And it was always to my mind, it was the book. I don't know why, it just always stayed with me. And I
Says you took the oath when you were 12 in 1927 and you were an Eagle Scout.
Hmm.
A council board member. Order of the Arrow.
There's a lot to do for a scout in this part of Oklahoma.
I never have been able to understand. There's one thing that I you know, the National Association that sports, they foster organization Boys and Girls Clubs, which I think I don't know that much about Boys and Girls Clubs, but when you go to trying to put boys and girls together, and some kind of thing, I don't go for that. Until a marriage takes place between a man and a woman, they can have their associations and all that, but whenever you go to bringing them together in an association that is so close, you got to be careful. You've been there.
I've been there, yeah.
And you probably had some ideas that weren't worth a damn at that time. But you show me right now, but you're telling me right now with that voice that you knew how to handle it. Got a nice dimple.
Well, I want to know, when history is written, what do you want it to say about you? How do you want to be remembered?
I want to say Hod Tolbert was born out in the west side of Blaine County. He died in Blaine County, and that's about all there is to it. Goodbye.
Hod. Hod, is that a nickname?
H-O-D, that's a nickname. That comes from when I was little. I of course, I wasn't too bright, but people would ask me what my name was. Well, for some reason, I don't know why, but I was little and I didn't understand, and I thought they were asking, well, how do you greet somebody? Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. Well, the word howdy went down to Hod. And they'd ask me what my name was, and I'd tell them, I'd say, well, hi. In other words, in a way. But they thought it was my name, see. Now was that dumbness on my part or dumbness on their part?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Oh,
I take the middle path
the
here.
world's a wonderful place, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, how do you spend a typical day now?
How do I what?
Spend a typical day now. What do you do during a typical day now? How early do you get up?
Oh, typical day. A typical day for a person that's over 100 years old is not too enjoyable, really and truly. First thing I do is try and get me some breakfast and eat it. got a back room back there on this, what they call a sunroom, which is stupid to have a sunroom on the west side of your house. But anyway, I go out there and go back to sleep.
What time do you get up from bed?
Usually it's around 6 o'clock.
And what time do you go to bed?
Anywhere from 9 to 2 o'clock in the morning.
You don't always get 8 hours then.
I try to get 8 hours, yes.
And do you read much during the day?
Yes. If I've got something I like to, yes, read, yes. Or right now that I own some land that an oil company wants to put some, well, use it for a gathering system, I guess you'd call it. And I've put in here lately, I've been putting in a lot of time on that, too much time really and truly. Now they're paying a pretty good price for it. But I personally would, for the good of my land, I think I would rather it didn't happen. But it'll be between $8,000 and $10,000 that they'll pay me. And as far as anybody driving along, they can't tell whether they're used or not. And but you're not interested in that.
You having to read legal documents then?
Very seldom. I don't. No.
Do you have a favorite author? Or genre?
Yeah, you're the best author.
I don't think that's what he meant.
Yes.
A little PR doesn't hurt, does it?
You read that? That.
Who's your favorite poet?
My favorite poet. I don't know how. Probably Tennyson. That's a hard question.
Not Robert Service.
Hmm?
Robert Service.
But yeah.
Do you have a favorite poem?
Let's don't get into all that.
Okay, you quoted Shakespeare. All the world's a stage. You must like Shakespeare too.
Oh well, of course. No one can take the place of Shakespeare. No one.
That's true.
Well, have you read the Louis L'Amour books?
The what?
Louis L'Amour.
No.
A lot of our centenarians, that's their favorite.
It's not his style.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but
It didn't.
but you've always told me I was wasting my time reading that kind of literature. Sorry.
Well, he wrote westerns.
You've wasted a lot of your time.
I certainly have. And other people's too. What about flower in a crannied wall?
Yeah.
Can you recite that? Do you remember?
Yeah.
I know you do.
I've never heard that.
Flower in a crannied wall.
That's a story that has to do with Jesus, doesn't it?
Well, and a lot of, yeah. You should talk about, well, never mind.
All right, read
That's
that. You read that? That back page there?
Of your mother and father
Yeah.
and your scouts. Mm-hmm.
Flower of a crannied wall. Never heard of that.
Coleridge, right? Didn't Coleridge write that poem?
You know, I don't know, but I think that's, I don't know, but I think that's right. Oh, well, poetry has played quite a, it's played a part in my life. I've got a lot of poetry out there on my computer that I've written. I mean, it's Did I ever give you a copy of that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I did.
So you actually use a computer?
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Now, you say I've used it. Actually, I think the computer uses me, but it's a two-way street, so we say. So I don't know. Boy, that computer is quite a piece of machinery.
What do you consider the greatest invention? The greatest invention ever?
During your lifetime.
Yeah, in your lifetime.
Well, I suppose that the computer has affected humanity more than anything else that I know that I can think of. I mean, right off the top. I mean, as a piece of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, I'm so proud of my son's life. It's hard for me to do that because in my estimation, well, of course, the Christianity is, and its philosophy of love for people and love for each other is the only thing that man should even consider. I mean, in my estimation. Because without love, there's no reason, nothing. Like I love both of you people, not because you're here giving me problems, but that's why I forgive you. Now you can, all right.
I see where your daughter gets her orneriness.
Oh well.
It's not every day you get forgiven and get loved in one day.
Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
No, what else you want to know? I think you've got a pretty good idea.
We've got a pretty good idea.
Well, Watonga's changed a lot during your lifetime, hasn't it?
Oh boy, it sure has.
You said it had an ice plant at one time.
What?
An ice plant.
Oh yes, yeah.
Did it have theaters?
Yes. The fact is, we had a man that had two theaters here, and they're well, now like high school. I went through high school here, and you know about books. When I was every year, each year had to put on a play. You know, I was the lead man every one of them, and I love to entertain people. I mean, if in the right way. I mean, Oh,
Well, that may be why you chose law.
well, when I was in high school, they told me, oh, you should be a lawyer, blah, blah. I remember my answer was, I don't want to spend my life sitting around listening to people's troubles. But I couldn't help it. When I really found out what the law was, and you read the Bible, and boy, do they refer to the law. If you just read it, they always go, the law. And I don't,
Well, I mean, they say the courtroom is like a stage.
oh, in a lot of ways that's true, yes, yes.
You're just entertaining the truth, I guess. Trying to.
Well, of course, law should be based on the truth, and all decisions should be based on truth, even if it's not very nice, because there's nothing but the honest truth that will save humanity from just complete failure. Right now we have a fight between Christianity and another national or a worldly religion. That the United States as a government cannot take sides, because in our Constitution we believe in freedom of religion. And that's one thing that's one thing that can ruin the United States as a government, in my estimation. Because any religion that isn't based on love for each other is a hell of a mess. And you believe me, don't you? I could tell from the looks on his face that he was thinking I was just stupid as could be. That's all right.
Absolutely not.
I think
amazed.
we'll end right there then. Thank you for having us today. It's been a pleasure.